Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with the congenial Charles Coulombe.
Oh, congenial. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. I'd rather be congenial than most other adjectives I can think of.
Yeah, it's a good adjective to be.
Yeah, I like congenial. Makes you think of a tavern in the countryside, with flagons and dark wood and red leather banquettes and stuff. And a lot of jolly people eating a lot and singing and drinking and just having a good time. Congenial.
That's a beautiful image.
Yeah. No major drama to it.
Right.
No, and this was just before. No. Just having a good time.
Yeah.
No build up. Just congenial. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys can be congenial, everyone around you will be happy with you. Promise.
Yeah. So, what's new?
What's new? Well, good news and bad news.
Okay.
Today is Friday the 13th.
Oh, your Friday. Lucky Friday the 13th.
Lucky Friday the 13th. It's lucky for me. But on this day, you got here. You just got here before the broadcast, so you missed out on all the fun. The Suits are back.
Ah, okay.
They're back in their palatial residences. You know, I was accused of talking trash about them.
Talking trash to power?
That's what they said, and I said, "You have no command of grammar, do you?" Which it was not met well. No, apparently they were upset because I was saying that they were useless and did nothing. When they informed me that their 2.5 weeks in the south of France had been very helpful and would do an enormous amount of good for this company. Lots of good.
Uh-huh.
They said they've got all kinds of progressive new ideas and stuff. I said, well, that's wonderful. Can you name one?
Uh-oh.
Oddly enough, they couldn't. Not one. But they did learn, and they never quite liked this before. They were all talking in great generalities. We're going to take the company to heights it's never seen before. I said, that's great. Exactly how? Then they got a little quiet. One of them accused me of being a buzzkill.
Wow.
Yeah, see? I think that's one of those business terms they picked up at this conference.
Well, gosh, maybe we picked the wrong adjectives today, because that was not congenial on your part.
Yeah, it was. You should have seen me at the commissariat for lunch. The commissary, I'll have you know, one way I knew that they were back, they told me that there was something special whipped up just for me for lunch. You know what it was?
What?
Mackerel surprise. You know what mackerel surprise is?
It's fish that was fresh on Monday, but by Friday it turns into mackerel.
Well, it would have normally, but this fish was bought last week. That was the surprise.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, they had this wonderful cream sauce over it. You could cut it with a knife. It was great. But I'm not going to complain because it was made with love.
Yeah.
On the other news, though, there is other news.
Okay.
Haters are still hating. Bigots are still bigoting. But they are.
Okay.
As you know, there's been a Supreme Court nominee by Mr. Trump. And it was revealed by one of the major networks that protesters had stockpiled signs and everything prior to the announcement being made. In other words, they didn't know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So
they got signs, we won't accept blank.
Right.
Fill in space.
Right. I mean, that reminds me, I don't know if we talked about this on the show. I think it was off air, where you talked about the LA Times, what you saw.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that? Because I think that's unbelievable.
I don't mind mentioning it. I think we might have done, but I don't mind bringing it up again because it is typical. I am suffering from Trump outrage fatigue syndrome. I'm really getting tired of people getting upset about him. Look, okay, I get it. You hate his guts. I don't like him either. It doesn't matter. He's the president. Get over it. Live with it. Deal. But the man can't do anything right. It's impossible. So, a good example. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I guess it was in May, maybe it was in April now, Anyway, on a Thursday in April or May, April, I think it's the third Thursday in April, look it up. There is a very little known and yet real holiday in this country called Loyalty Day. Now, the way you know about Loyalty Day is because it falls on precisely the same day every year as Law Day, which is another holiday that you all have been ignoring successfully for your entire lives. But Loyalty Day began when Congress, in about 1948, 1949, something like that, decided that communism was a bad thing, and so inaugurated Loyalty Day, which is a day upon which Americans are supposed to reflect upon our way of life and our history and our freedoms and how wonderful we are and all that, and how much better we are than people who don't have all that stuff. Loyalty Day. Okay. So part of the congressional action was that the president at the time, whichever president, in this particular case, Harry Truman, would sign a proclamation declaring Loyalty Day.
Yeah.
Oh. So, the LA Times I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, the LA Times brings smiles to small children. The LA Times ran an article filled with outrage that Trump revives Cold War custom of Loyalty Day. Well, that is what when I was looking at Google, that was the first line in the LA Times article.
Yeah.
But it had already changed by the time I got there, because somebody apparently had informed the smart people of the Slimes that actually every president since Truman has signed a proclamation for Loyalty Day.
Yeah.
Including God's gift to morons, President Obama. So by the time I got to the actual article, it had changed. And now it said he had signed the Loyalty Day proclamation after the traditional Loyalty Day proclamation after forgetting to do so last year.
Yeah, because I thought they were initially attacking him for not doing it.
First they attacked him for doing it.
Yeah.
Then they attacked him for not doing it the last year.
Yeah.
You see. But then I looked up NPR, and he did it last year.
Wow.
So what it was simply like most people, the LA Slimes people had no idea what Loyalty Day was anyway.
Yeah.
They never heard of it.
Yeah.
And so when something, they're looking for anything they can go after the guy on. So they look at the White House thing and it says, I can see this in my mind's eye. I'm not saying it happened this way because I wasn't there, but I can see it. The Trumpster, they see Trump signs the proclamation for Loyalty Day. Oh, here's something. Oh boy, we get him on this one. And Loyalty Day. Oh, communism. It's Cold War. Ooh, communism would have been great. People like me would have been shot. Anyway. So it's just terrible. Excuse me. What? Actually, President Obama also signed a Loyalty Day proclamation every year of his office. I don't remember Trump signing it last year. He forgot. He's a stupid boo-boo. That's what we'll say. Yeah. Actually, he did it too. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a non-story. President Trump breathes. Oh my God! He's taking up air that could have been going to children in Africa. Give it a rest. Just leave it alone, okay? You hate his guts, fine. Just wait for him to do something you really don't like. Just think, I don't like moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Let's hear your mouths on that, huh? No, I guess not. I don't like this insane Cold War with Russia. One of the things I was hoping for out of the man was that we'd have an end to it. But the morons with their, he's in the pay of the Russians, have just about ensured that we're never going to get rid of this damn Cold War while Trump's in office. Because if he does, those people's rear ends will be flying a mile a minute telling us how, we're at peace with Russia because he's in their pay. What? Ah, this drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely crazy. And I don't even like the guy. But I'll tell you, I don't care who someone is. You may hate his stinking guts. You don't make him look bad by being worse. Okay? All right? If I think Vinnie Franchini here is an utter moron, and I turn to him and I say, "You know your problem is, Indian? You a big fat dum-dum." He doesn't look bad. It's me. So just, if anybody here watching me has a problem with the president, try to state it like a grown-up. Make sure you know your facts, and explain why you're against it. Why am I against the embassy being moved to Jerusalem? Because the only thing that can come out of it is more rioting and killing in the Near East. That's why. And because all the Christian churches in the Holy Land were against the idea, because they're going to have to pay the brunt. See, that is what I call a reasoned argument. Now, I realize that most of us don't really care when other people are getting pummeled. I understand. I accept that. But anyway, now you know.
That's the first time I've seen you out of breath on the show.
Well,
that came out of nowhere.
No, I know it did. And it's not the kind of thing a truly congenial person would do. I might be losing Mr. Congeniality. But I might lose the prize if I take it back.
That's okay.
All right. No, I really have to say, though, ladies and gentlemen, the infantile level of discourse in our country is really beginning to get me crazy. It's not even necessarily the issues. It's the fact that just mouths open and there's nothing behind them. You know, if there's anything, ladies and gentlemen, that I've tried my entire career, and certainly on this show, to do, it's to encourage people only to have opinions if they really know something about it. And to try to present those opinions in a civil manner. Not that I've always done so myself, but you've got to have that goal, right? And the creeping infantilism that is covering us is just amazing to me. It's a funny thing. There's a comedian, I might have mentioned this before, but there's a very funny comedian called, what is it called? It's called something. He has a name. I think it's Ben Upton.
Okay.
He's an old guy about my age, and a lot of his shtick has to do with how things have changed in the past 30, 40 years. But he made a very funny comment, which, the more I think about it, the truer it seems. Speaking about the millennials, he says, you guys are dumb. I don't mean as individuals, but I mean as a generation. More of you folks are dumb than mine were. And then, they look at him kind of like, what? He says, well, see, it's like this. Our parents let us play with guns, knives, and fireworks. The dumb ones didn't make it.
Oh, you see, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right.
they never saw adulthood. Ooh, what's that? Boom. But he says, you guys have got everything plastic wrapped and child-proof for your protection. If you're 43 and you still need child-proofing, there's a real problem. But anyway, I digress. Suffice to say, with all this good stuff, ladies and gentlemen, try not to foam at the mouth the way you just saw me do.
That's good advice, Charles.
Yeah, I think so. What do we got today? Let's move on from this insanity. Although, yeah, we can.
But you foaming at the mouth. See what that does. See that's there's a certain catharsis.
Oh, catharsis!
It's what you see. We've talked about. I don't know if we've talked about this on the show, but it's the Virgil effect. See, everybody watching this right now, they are happier now because you have done the venting for them. They're like, yeah, this is crazy. So now they can relax and rest easy because you have taken the burden and and addressed it.
And so I lost it on air
Yeah,
so they could relax in the comfort of their own homes.
that's right.
Maybe I'm congenial. Well, if you're in the comfort of your own home, and as the distinguished Schlockmeister here says, of course, the Schlockmeister, you understand, that makes me the Schlockerei.
Oh, okay.
So it's not really, if it is an insult, it kind of bounces back.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, what? Anyway, as I was saying, if indeed that's true, and you're feeling this wonderful sense of catharsis, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very grateful. I feel like I've done my part to make your life a better place in which to live.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got?
Okay.
What's up this week?
First question is from Laetorgia Fanatica.
Liturgia Fanatica.
Yeah.
You know, there's a cure for that these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly, there's just like this lotion you can put when
No.
it breaks out.
No.
No? All right, well, okay, what do we got?
What really separates a hobbyist from a professional writer? And how have you been able to make a living at it? How do young Catholic writers get their foot in the door to make an actual career out of writing about the faith? Whether that be history, or fiction, novels, or essays, or poetry?
Man. Wow. Now, that's a very hard question, partly because the business has changed so much from when I was trying to break in the late 80s. I mean, God bless us all, that's 30 years ago. You know, my first book came out in 87. So, now 31 years ago, God help us. And everything's changed since then, ladies and gentlemen. Everything has changed. Well, the first thing I would say is write what you want to read. If you're into poetry, write the kinds of poems you want to write, you would like to read, rather. If write the kind of fiction you would like to read. Write the kind of commentary you would like to read. Write the kind of news reportage that you would like to read. And look at those outlets. It's very tough because in my day you had print outlets in a much greater profusion than you do now. But look at all the sources you like to read and see if they'll take your stuff, you know. Take some writing courses, learn, make sure you know your craft, make sure you know little things they don't teach you anymore, like grammar. Make sure you know the basics. Read a lot. I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot be a writer unless you read about 12 or 100 times more than you actually write. You need to stuff the little pointed head here with stuff.
As you said, I remember what you said. You gave similar advice previously, and you said you need to have a love of the written word.
You know, you really do. Of the well-turned phrase, you know. You need that. You need, because understand, it's not something you're going to make a fortune at. Even making a living is very, very hard. And you would be well. On the one hand, you would be well advised to have some sort of job you can fall back on, or if not you, then you better have a spouse who's working and is long-suffering and can take your garbage and has a real good sense of humor. That's also very important. And anyone who's thinking of marrying a writer out there and you don't have a sense of humor, leave the person alone. Don't do that. You're going to need a sense of humor to live with a writer. It is a vocation of sorts, which means, like any true vocation, you have to sacrifice something. You'll probably not make a lot of money. And you probably should do something along the side, like teach, or, I don't know, work if you could get a real gig in journalism or something, that's great. You probably have to work for a secular journal in order to make ends meet, because the Catholic press does not pay well. And by and large, I mean, some of them do. I'd be lying if I said they were all cheap.
The ones that really hit it big, they jump out of the Catholic presses,
Yeah.
and they go to like Image, or like I know one of them who's really hit it big and has gone beyond is Raymond Arroyo.
Yes.
He's one of the guys he said bye-bye to Ignatius Press and some of these other Catholic publishers, and then he went
To Image.
Image or Harper or one of those.
Image is an imprint of Harper. If I
Yeah,
remember correctly.
there you go.
Well, that's the Catholic imprint of a secular company.
Interesting.
It's just not something. I mean, I doubt Raymond Arroyo is going to end as one of the 10 wealthiest men in America.
Of course, yeah.
I doubt he'll make anything like Stephen King.
Right.
But that having been said, it is to a great degree of vocation, religious vocation, in a true sense, in that you're trying, through whichever literary medium you use, you're trying to bring the truth to as many people as you possibly can. And that truth may be brought through fiction, or fictional prose, through poetry, through nonfiction. I think it's a tremendous error to think that there's only one way to get the truth out. In a lot of ways. Because there's so many different kinds of people. There are probably any number of people who have first been brought to the faith by Lord of the Rings. Why? Because they're amazed by the thing, and then they look at the life of the novelist. Well, what do they find? Well, the biggest thing about him was his Catholic faith. That was his shtick, and, but a lot of people are brought in by reading Aquinas. A lot of people are brought in by reading Chesterton or Belloc. You never know. I've even known particularly favored souls who were just passing by a Catholic church and felt yanked into it. It had nothing to do with reading anybody. So, there are as many ways to bring people to the truth and to bring the truth to people as there are people. But I'm afraid, in terms of giving you really, there's no 50 famous Catholic writers school for Catholic writers. But you've got to be very adept at what you do. So learn your lessons, learn your grammar, learn your vocabulary, read a lot so you know how language sounds. When you finish a piece, read it aloud to somebody so that it sounds true to your ear. Because believe me, if it sounds false to your ear, it's going to look bad on the page, even if you don't see that yourself reading it. Trust me. And then you go to all the outlets that you enjoy reading, whether they be hard copy or online, and send them query letters. If you've got an idea for a book, find out what sort of publishers do those sorts of books. Send them a query letter. The worst that can happen is they'll say drop dead. I wish there was an easy way to do it, but there isn't, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's demanding, it's fulfilling, and it's fun in a lot of ways, but it's very demanding, and it does require some sacrifices. But if you love what you do, you're willing to make the sacrifices necessary to do it. It is very, very hard to have a wife and children with it, though. Believe me. Francis Bacon said, "He who has wives and children leaves hostages to fortune. Of no one is that truer than the Catholic writer." Somebody asked Hilaire Belloc how he was able to write so much stuff, because he wrote a lot.
Yeah.
He was very prolific. And his response was, because I have to keep my children in pearls and champagne.
Okay. Well, from the other side of the business, the publishing end, especially if you're writing fiction, don't just write to write. Don't just write a story. You have to be passionate about it. Because me personally, I can tell when a person is just writing a story to write a story. I can tell. You've got to put yourself into it to some extent, and be invested in it. And the other thing too, when you're putting it together, and perhaps you're getting opinions before you send it to a publisher, don't get opinions from friends and family.
Oh.
You can't do that, because they're going to give you sugar-coated opinions, because they're not going to want to jeopardize their relationship with you and hurt your feelings. You're going to need to get some professional opinions to tell you things that you might not want to hear. Those are the most helpful opinions, and that will give you a true look at your work and where it is.
Which is another good reason to take some classes in writing, especially if your background from school is kind of weak. And if you went to most schools, it'll be kind of weak. Or contrariwise, if it wasn't, and you've been to a school with good classes in writing, go back to your teachers. They will be very happy to tell you the truth. Remember, too, that when you ask your family and friends, you're putting them in a bad position. You really are, because they don't want to say anything to hurt your feelings. And they also may not know anyway what a good story is. They may like it just because, yeah, this sounds just like you. It might be good or bad. I mean, I'm not saying it's either one,
Yeah. So, yeah, and the other thing, I guess, applies to probably every vocation, which is, it's a lot of hard work.
Sure.
Don't count, especially with the business profession, it's tempting to do this, where you say, okay, you do this and this, and then let word of mouth get out, and all the, so in the writing profession, just write a book and then let word of mouth. Trust in the almighty word of mouth. You can't do that.
No.
You have to rely on your own hard work. You have to grind it out. You have to market it. Success, in my opinion, is a function of the effort you put into it, not if you happen to get something viral or just push the right buttons. No, it's how many buttons you push. That's my opinion.
And any book, this is true regardless of whether it's Catholic or secular, the author is the best salesman.
Exactly. The author is the brand. The author, especially nowadays in this digital age, it's on the author. It's not a coincidence that our best-selling books, well, most of them, are ones where the authors are more involved in the marketing.
You don't mean like, I don't know, Star-Spangled Crown or Catholic Quest for the Holy Grail, do you?
Yeah, exactly. See,
Puritan's Empire, perhaps.
Yeah, there has been a slight change in sales since we've done these videos.
What's that other book? Desire and Deception.
Desire and Deception.
Yeah, and The White Cockade.
Yeah, and Every Man Today Called Rome.
Every Man Today Called Rome, yeah. Wow. I'm sorry, was that a plug?
See, yeah, but I mean, you demonstrate the hard work that you have to put into to make a living at the thing.
And it is work. Believe me, if you want an easy job, look elsewhere. A fulfilling vocation, yeah. An easy job, no.
It's getting a little harder. I mean, you almost feel the walls closing in a little bit, because, as you sort of alluded to, millennials are a dumber generation, and we don't read as much. Reading is a more extraordinary thing for us.
Look at letters. And the letters follow each other.
I still don't understand Instagram, where it's just pictures. I just don't understand that.
It makes it easier.
It's not as interesting to me. I need words.
Emojis.
Yeah, great. Emojis. Yeah, wonderful.
Those are words, sort of.
Yeah, so, okay.
Like a rebus.
Yeah.
You remember the rebus puzzles?
No.
They would be written, and then there'd be like a symbol of something. But if you said what the thing was aloud, like there'd be a kitty followed by CH, so that was catch.
Okay.
Get it?
Okay.
Never mind.
I don't get it.
It's all right. It was before your time.
Yeah, before my time. But anyhow, if you're millennial and you're a reader, you are the top 1%. You should be so proud to actually have knowledge and wisdom in this area, and know things and to care about things.
Also, don't take what I said too literally. Don't think that now's the time to go start playing with knives, guns, and fireworks. It helps with proving yourself smart.
Oh, you're right.
Don't do that.
Okay.
Smarter than I look. I don't know. All right, what else we got?
Oh, also, one last thing, because you mentioned poetry. Don't try to make a living off of poetry.
Oh, God. that was true. Ladies and gentlemen, that was true back in 1978 when I was a cadet at New Mexico Military Institute. Mr. Van Horn, who was my creative writing teacher, the man who really taught me how to write. You know, if I've written anything you've liked, you can thank him and say a prayer for the repose of his soul. But Mr. Van Horn used to say over and over again, whenever the question of poetry came up, and he had published poets, all right, so it wasn't that he didn't love, well, one of the classes I took from was in poetry. You know, he loved poetry.
Yeah.
But he said, remember, gentlemen, you will not make a living off of poetry unless you're Ron McEwen. And then would you want to be?
Yeah, well, the way I think of it, I think if you're going to be a poet, you better be a musician, too. You better put a nice jingle on, like perhaps Bob Dylan.
Well, that's how Ron McEwen, I mean, that's how he basically made money.
Oh, I see.
The Ron McEwen of the 1920s was a poet called Edgar Guest. And Dorothy Parker, who's a person you may have heard of, maybe not, very witty woman from the same era. Do you know what a Wasserman test is?
No.
Well, it was the test for syphilis in those days.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have to say this or it won't make sense.
Okay.
So she couldn't stand Edgar Guest's work because it was like Ron McEwen's, it was repetitive, it was this, it was that. So she wrote, I'd rather flunk a Wasserman test than read a poem by Edgar Guest.
Gosh, man. Wow. Wow.
She was the one who said, no, I shouldn't say this.
Well, you're going to.
Yeah, that's true. She was asked to use horticulture in a sentence.
Okay.
You know what horticulture is?
Isn't that just plants, taking care of
It's
plants?
gardening.
Yeah, gardening.
Yeah, and so she said, can you use horticulture in a sentence? And she said, well, absolutely. You can lead a horticulture, but you can't make her think.
Wow.
That's what she said!
Okay.
Mrs. Dorothy Parker. What?
Vicious.
She was. They called the group she belonged to, the Algonquin Round Table, the Vicious Circle. Because they all made jokes like that.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
Can't imagine.
We're too
Boy,
nice today.
we're so much nicer today.
Oh, yes, we are. Unless it's that awful Mr. Trump. I could just scream thinking about him. If I can't scream, I'll... You know, he ties his own shoes. He's too cheap to employ a valet to tie his shoes for him.
No.
He's directly responsible for the job shortage in this country.
I thought we're at like 3% unemployment or something. We're like at like an all-time low.
See, this is what I mean. He's taking jobs away by tying his own shoes.
Unbelievable.
Well, maybe he has other people tying them, and that's why there's... never mind. Go ahead.
Okay.
What else we got?
Next question is from Christian Grishchode.
Christian Grishchode.
Yeah. What does Charles think about the Jewish influence in modern-day culture?
Oy. What does Charles think about the Jewish influence in modern-day culture? Well, it could be worse. You know. Well, I mean, it's a big part of American culture. See, one thing it's interesting about the United States is that on what was a primarily WASP nation, you had, nevertheless, a popular entertainment starting in the 19th century and continuing almost to our own time that was primarily made up, and I'm thinking of things like vaudeville and so forth, you know, going all the way back then and then to Broadway and so forth. You had a series of media that were primarily cooked up by three, what's the word I want, three marginal groups. The Jews, the Catholics, and the blacks.
Mm.
Now, it's quite interesting to me that these three groups, in various ways, dominated American popular entertainment. And they were entertaining a primarily WASP culture that apparently couldn't do the job itself. So
that's interesting.
Well, yeah, it is interesting. When was the last time you went to go hear a WASP comedian?
Wow.
Yeah, I guess not. Darling, as I was saying to my wife the other day at the club, I said, darling, isn't that droll? Where's the laughter?
That's like almost an assault on British comedy.
Oh, no. American WASPs are like British, except they don't have the wit.
Okay.
No, it is, because British comedy is certainly its own thing. Even there, though, oddly enough, what we consider Cockney has a heavy Jewish influence. Because the whole Cockney culture was heavily influenced by Eastern European Jewish immigrants, just as we were.
Interesting.
Having been born in New York, I'm almost half Jewish by association. Yiddish, which was the popular language of the Ashkenazim, the Northern European Jews and Eastern who came here to the States primarily, is a wonderful language for insults. It's just great.
Why?
I couldn't begin to tell you. I don't know why. I just know it is. And so many of their words have come into English like schmuck, which, you don't have to know what it is literally, and I won't tell you what it is literally. Let's just say that without it, a man's not a man. Nevertheless, even the sound of it, it's not nice.
Right. Oh, I see.
You don't have to know what it means to know. If I say you're a schmuck, that's not a compliment.
Okay, I get it now.
Schlemiel, schmo, none of these sound nice.
That's true.
No, plasha. That's what you don't hear too often. It's a funny one, though, because it means someone who talks big and doesn't know what he's talking about. It's a plasha. And the story they tell to illustrate the example, this Jewish fellow, the two Jewish guys who were partners in a company, and the one goes on a tour of Rome and the Holy Land with his wife, He comes back, and his partner says, so, how was the trip? And he said, oh, it was wonderful. So how was the Holy Land? He says, oh, I loved it. I saw the Wailing Wall, I saw Hebron, I saw all these kibbutzim, where our people are working hard and building the new Israel, and it's really great. I said, well, that's nice. And so you went to Rome? He says, oh, I'll say I went to Rome. It was wonderful. Really? And did you see the ancient ruins? Yes, I saw the ancient ruins, and I went to the Vatican, and I'll have you know, my wife and I, we had a private appointment, a private audience with the Pope. Really? How was that? He was fantastic. Her I didn't care for.
What? I don't get what happened then.
Well, what happened was that he obviously didn't get anywhere near the Pope, thinking that he must have a wife.
Okay.
In other words, he's a plusher. He's a moron.
Yeah.
He's going on and on. He's a big talker.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I see.
So he says,
wow.
He was fantastic. Her I didn't care for.
Wow. Okay.
So, the one thing I've noticed, having gone to a number of WASP affairs in my time, is that very often, despite, shall we say, the ideological oppositions that come up between us, almost of a necessity, you go to any WASP affair, and toward the end of the evening, you'll find the Jews and the Catholics in the corner telling stories and jokes and singing and so on. That, at least, I have observed in many places. There's a certain coarseness to the humor, but when it's not coarse, it's very funny. And that, of course, is American humor all over. When it's not coarse, it's very funny. There was a Jewish comedian called Belle Barth, who was very foul-mouthed. It was back in the 50s. And Belle Barth, I wouldn't repeat 4/5 of her humor, which is a pity, because when she wasn't foul-mouthed, she was very funny. But she used to say, I hate to be vulgar, but it's, but it's profitable. And that, of course, how much is them, how much is their audience?
Yeah.
It's like driving along the 60 this morning. I saw all these ads for strip clubs.
Yeah.
Well, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But having said that, Belboth also said one of the funniest things I think I've ever heard. The first time I heard it, I died laughing. For it to make sense, you should know that because of the socialist leanings of a lot of assimilated Jews, they like to make a lot of fun of wealthy Jews or Jews who were trying to put on airs. By people who would, I don't know, wear mink coats to go to synagogue.
Okay.
The idea was that these people were very. You see, ladies and gentlemen, if we were on the set of Mad Men, I wouldn't have to explain any of this, but it's a 21st century crowd. Anyway, so what should happen? But that they would make fun of that kind of thing, of the nose in the air sort of thing on the part of some Jews. The other thing you should know is that going to shul, which literally means school, was another way of saying going to temple.
Okay.
Just take it as read.
Okay.
All right. So the story Bill Barth told was there are these two minks out in the woods. You know, they're playing around the way minks do.
Yeah.
But up comes a hunter. He shoots the one mink. He's about to shoot the other. And the one who's about to get it says to the dying one, "See you in shul." No, of course you don't. Meaning they're going to come together as mink coats.
Oh, okay.
But see, even the idea of hunting, even the idea of wearing fur, oh gee willikers, how could we even do that? Ooh! If there's anything I hate about the 21st century, it's that element of prissiness. No, I don't blame you or your millennial brethren, because you're not the guys who did it.
Yeah.
It's my people.
Yeah, your people.
Who have put on this reign of stupidity. Oh my God, it might be smoking. That's, the rating system on movies. Foul language, okay. Nudity, okay. Drinking and smoking. Oh.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, well. Why do you think there's no, the film Pearl Harbor with, what's his face, Ben Affleck?
Yes.
You noticed there was no smoking in that film?
I don't look for those things.
Well, you wouldn't.
Okay.
But they have these bar scenes. And one of the things that every single World War II vet I know who saw that thing remarked on was that there was no smoke.
Interesting.
You went to a bar during World War II and there was, it was foggy London town. But, we can't smoking. Ooh. Don't be precious, ladies and gentlemen. Be congenial, but don't be precious.
Okay, well, gosh, I mean, Jewish influence, is this purely comedy? There's no other influence? What about the bankers? What about the globalists? What about the Judeo-Masonic conspiracy? That's what people really wanted to know, not this comedic thing.
Well, but I like the comedic thing. The rest of it I could care less about. No, listen, ladies and gentlemen. I once had a discussion with, I probably shouldn't say, but I will, with Bishop Williamson about this very thing, and it was going on about the Jewish influence in finance and so on and so on. And I said, firstly, there are as many wealthy Gentiles as there are Jews. Just the Jews they know what they're doing, and they're smarter than most of us. But beyond that, and more importantly, nature abhors a vacuum. All right. Somebody has to give society its tone. Now, Catholics are too stupid even to run a church.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if we're that dumb, how could you possibly expect us to run society? Well, never blame other people because you're too stupid.
That's a deflection. We're not talking about dumb Catholics. We're talking about the Jewish bankers.
We're not talking about dumb Catholics. Why aren't there Catholic bankers?
Because
there are, but
because the Catholics, the Catholic Church, I thought ruled against usury once upon a time, and that got everyone else started in it, other than Catholics.
That's all true. Well, it's all true, but the sad fact remains that Catholics simply are not as good at finance as a group as they should be. The proof of the pudding. Why do so many young Catholic couples break up?
Yeah, money.
They get married without even thinking of how they... Forget about banking. Forget about usury. You can't even balance a checkbook and you're getting married? You don't have a profession, you don't have a job, and you're getting married?
Okay.
I wouldn't blame the Jews for that.
No?
No, I guess not. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you know, you cannot blame other people for doing what you should be doing. We Catholics should be setting the tone for society, not the WASPs, not even our Jewish brethren. Us. Look at our traditions, at our history, at our culture. We did once upon a time, but then we became dum-dums.
Okay, well, I'll play devil's advocate. Let's say we're discriminated against in the finance industry.
Let me tell you something. In ancient Rome, we were more than discriminated against. We were murdered. And yet we came to dominate. So how are the Catholics of that time different from the Catholics of today?
I don't want to say.
No.
It's embarrassing. It's
embarrassing.
Because they had stick-to-itiveness.
Well, they believed in it.
And they believed, there it is.
And they believed that without it, we'd all fry. It meant something to them. With us, it's a nice thing.
Well, how about another reason that perhaps we're not dominating is because we're competing against the Puritan work ethic. See, because they believe, that wealth like that is a reward, whereas we're sort of disdainful of wealth.
But I repeat, we are disdainful of wealth, which is a good thing to be. But the reason why we're in the position we're in is because we have not converted the society we're in. And the reason we haven't converted it in the society we're in, specifically these United States, is because for 250 years we have felt no need to. And so we are condemned to second-class status, which we deserve.
Something tells me that even if we did convert, like, a lot of people, that we still wouldn't be in charge of finance and other things.
Oh, you never know.
You never know? Is that really the argument? You never know?
You never know. Well, hey, that same argument gets people by their thousands to buy lottery tickets. Why shouldn't it work for me?
Well, it doesn't work for them, and it's not going to work for
you. What do you mean? They buy lottery tickets.
Yeah, but they don't win.
No, but that was what I said. It's what gets them to buy them.
Okay, buy your lottery ticket.
You never know.
Great.
You could win. You never know. You could.
Okay.
But seriously, honestly, as far as the high finance and all this, ladies and gentlemen, every non-Catholic culture is based upon something dreadful.
Wow.
Okay. That's the price you live for being in a non-Catholic culture. You don't like it? Tough. There's only one way out of it. You either move, which is probably not today, there's no place to go, or you evangelize. And maybe, if you, and 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 me, do our jobs, instead of being the morons we normally are, then maybe our children, or grandchildren, or great-grandchildren will live in a worthwhile society. But if not, no. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his justice, and all these things shall be added unto you. He doesn't say what happens if you don't seek the kingdom of God. But I think we know. We're enjoying the benefits of not seeking it.
It's true. Okay, next question is from Seamus O'Habsburg.
Oh, yeah, sure. The Irish branch of the family. Well, that's wonderful. So what does His Imperial and Royal Highness have to say?
I have a question about posture during prayer. When should we kneel when we pray? Is it acceptable to say the rosary seated or when lying in bed? If you can't sleep, is it all right to say the rosary at night until you do fall asleep?
Well, okay. Kneeling is the most attentive way to say it, and it's the best way to say it. Absolutely. But if you're driving long distances, if you're driving long distances and you're able to kneel while you're at the wheel, I would love to see how your car is set up. I don't know how you would do that.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, I think so. So, and for many of us, especially those who have to commute, driving is a great time to say the rosary. And yeah, sure, I mean, say it when you're about to fall asleep. Don't let that be the only time you say it. But, if the rosary is a great prayer to say at any time. But if you really want to say it at its best and most authoritative, if you will, then kneeling is the best posture. But that doesn't preclude you're saying it at other times in other ways.
Right. That's what de Montfort says in The Secret of the Rosary, which we did a piece on a couple episodes ago. He says kneeling is the best.
Yes, it is. It sure is.
Okay, next question is from Roger Moore.
Oh, I thought he was dead.
Oh, the James
Bond?
Bond? Yeah. No, apparently he sent in a question.
Well, all right. Good on you, Roger. Welcome home.
In her book, Apostasy in America, Solange Hertz discusses Julian the Apostate. What does Charles think of him, specifically his attempt to rebuild the temple? Do you believe God stopped him with fire?
I didn't like Julian the Apostate. Oh, you want more?
Oh,
okay.
You want? Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, yes, I believe that God stopped him with fire.
What is that all about?
Well, basically, he wanted to efface every trace of the faith. And one of the ways he wanted to do that was to rebuild the Temple of Jerusalem as a way of disproving the prophecy that would not rise again until the end. So he was going to show them.
Wow.
And instead they got earthquakes and bursts of fire and so forth, and were unable to do it.
Ah.
Oh, indeed. And I have no doubt that if they tried it again, they'd get the same result. They're welcome to try.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, what a coinky-dinky. Last time they had an earthquake before that, they crucified somebody.
Yeah, I know.
I don't get it. What's all that about?
It's weird. But no, Roger Moore cited, actually, that's from my favorite chapter in Apostasy in America, The Perils of Pagan Society, that chapter's called. And it's so good, I ended up putting it on the Tumblr House blog. I'll link to it on this video.
No, why?
Because it's one of my favorite of hers. And it talks about Julian the Apostate and pagan society. And there's a lot of points that she makes in that are really important. One of them is kind of funny. She kind of defends pagan, our image of pagans.
Our image? She defends our image of pagans.
No, excuse me. She defends pagans from our image, where we sort of put pagans down like they're sort of barbaric in a sense.
Child sacrificing.
And, she says, they could be very moral. They could be very devout, even in their beliefs.
In their sense, yeah.
And she talked about Julian the Apostate. One of the reasons he promoted religious freedom in the empire was to pacify the people, because he knew that a society filled with Christians was going to be really hard to govern. Because as you said before in our video, I remember it's one of my favorite videos. Bad South American countries. You say Christian countries are hard to rule because we're free thinkers. We don't conform.
No.
And we approach truth as like, if you're speaking not truth, you're going to get it. You're going to hear it from us.
It's absolutes.
Absolutes. We deal in absolutes. We don't deal in relativism. We deal in absolutes.
And this is true, oddly enough, in countries that are culturally Catholic,
Yeah.
like Italy, Spain, Mexico, and all that. This is true even of people who hate the faith,
Yeah.
because they're culturally Catholic. So the faith becomes not something they can take or leave alone, but something they have to destroy.
Mm.
That's why if you look at the moron that was just elected in Spain, the idiots that run Ireland,
Uh-huh.
it isn't enough for these people just to disestablish the church and now we'll leave it alone, as they do in the United States.
Yeah.
They have to go after it. They've got to rip down crucifixes. They've got to, throw priests out into the street. Why? Because they come to hate the faith the way a Catholic hates any heresy.
Yeah, they haven't this absolute approach.
Exactly. My late grandfather used to say that you can get nothing done in Catholic countries because no one will compromise. You get nothing done in Protestant countries because everybody will compromise. There's no there. There's no.
Yeah.
Nobody stands for anything.
So I guess one of the big points from the chapter in the book is that we're pagans. We live in a pagan society, basically, where you have these moralistic people, we have religious freedom, we have many gods. I mean, we see that sort of in ecumenism,
Yeah.
that we're all sort of worshiping the one deity.
Of sorts.
So you've got, there's Jesus, there's whatever, Vishnu, all these other...
Many paths, one truth.
Yeah, see, you're exposed to all this crap more than me.
Do you hear yourself?
So you can spout it better than
Do
me.
you hear yourself? All this crap. Let me tell you something. Some very serious-minded people believe in this.
I'm sure.
I mean, there are people with degrees as long as you're up.
I'm sure.
And they believe that, in a sense, all of us are coming together to try basically to say the same thing.
And that's pagan. Yeah, that's pagan. These are pagans. Even though they don't abide by the name per se, they're pagans.
Oh,
I'm going to read
a bit
a bit, not from this chapter, a different part from Apostate in America, Lord Baltimore's Utopia, the beginning of the chapter.
Okay.
When John Paul II told the crowd assembled in Battery Park that, quote, the right to religious liberty is deeply rooted in your country, he was telling only part of the story, for that liberty was never planted on these shores by Protestants, who with few exceptions in colonial times had been noted for rigorous intolerance, much less the fruit of the Constitution eventually adopted in 1789. Religious freedom was introduced into that very Constitution by way of an amendment embodying a principle laid down 150 years before the founders of Maryland, the Union's only Catholic colony. In other words, the seeds of ecumenism, religious pluralism, and heretical Americanism were not brought to these shores by the Mayflower, but by the Ark and the Dove. Not by fanatical Puritans, but by tolerant Catholics.
I can't argue with it.
How dare she? She blame us Catholics and not the Protestants for ecumenism.
Well, you can't blame people for being what they are. I mean, look. It's like if you go to work with a boss who insists that you always be there at 9 a.m. and you know this, you take the job. It's that boss, I always makes sure I gotta be there at 9.
No?
You took the job. You take your paycheck, don't you? So guess what?
Yeah.
If you came to colonial Massachusetts, you knew the Puritans were in charge, and if you didn't know, they'd pretty soon let you know. They persecuted heretics in Massachusetts. You know who the two most common varieties were?
I wonder.
Quakers and Baptists.
Interesting.
A bunch of Baptists in, I think, 1720, they realized they weren't wanted. So in 1720, they left Northampton, Massachusetts, and went down, for religious freedom's sake, to the frontier of North Carolina. And it's from that initial settlement that all of Southern baptistry spread out.
Ah.
Now, and baptistry spread very fast on the frontier because in those days, their ministers did not have to be educated to be ordained. One of the one of the things that held back the Catholics and the Episcopalians and the Methodists, not so much Methodists, but Presbyterians and so on, Congregationalists, was that they all required that their clergy be very well educated. But that takes time. It takes 7-8 years to produce a single cleric. Whereas when a person can just say, I gotta be in the Spirit, I gotta preach the Lord. Well, okay. So at any rate, nobody mistook the Puritans for being open. And what happened? Their descendants became much more so, but their descendants also gave up, those who did, gave up what was recognizable as Christianity. That was how Unitarianism started.
Okay.
So, anyway, what else we got?
Next question is from Kale.
Who?
Kale, like the vegetable? Kale?
All right, Kale, because you were nice enough to send a question, I'm not going to have any fun with your name.
Good.
It's tempting.
Many traditionalists are of the opinion that the Tridentine Mass is perfect and should never be changed or replaced. Yet the Tridentine Mass itself is the product of many historical changes and variations, and the Tridentine Mass itself replaced many other types of Mass before it. Is it a new development that people believe in an unchanging Mass, or have parishioners always railed against changes of any kind until they were forced to submit? P.S. Nothing has turned me off from Catholicism more than Pharisaical radtrads that harbor a hatred for normal Catholics. At what point is it right to tell them to lighten up?
Well, we'll answer the second question first.
Okay.
It's always appropriate to tell people to lighten up. I can remember being called a schismatic when I was in high school because I preferred the traditional Mass by my religion teacher, who went on a long railing thing. See, I'm old and I remember when this stuff happened. Believe me, the so-called normal Catholics, especially the Blueheads, if you show a preference for the traditional Mass, they'll be all over you like a cheap suit. It does work both ways, trust me. But to answer your question, not really, because the changes in the Mass that have taken place over time have usually been very gradual and over relatively minor things. In other words, you might find the Mass, as it was said in 1011, and as it was said in 1412, and as it was said in 1790, to be a number of textual differences. But the language would have been in Latin, and the priest would have been ad orientem.
No one ever grumbled over any of these changes?
Not really, because there weren't things. I mean, it's like when they brought in the last gospel.
Yeah, I mean, nobody grumbled over that?
Yeah, oh my God, we're going to spend another 2 minutes at Mass. I don't know how I can stand that. Well, no. Because you see, as Pope Benedict XVI has pointed out, what happened in 1969 was a radical reconstruction, unlike any other kind of changes the Mass had ever seen before. Now, it is true you'll find people who are not very well educated and will think, well, the Mass has always been the way it was in 1962 or 58 or 41 or whatever they want. That's not true, obviously. But the changes were minimal. What was done in the 60s was a radical hatchet job. And if you lived through it, having been told most of your life that the Mass was unchanging by the clergy, and then to have them turn around and tell you, now we're changing everything. It's a little bit like your parents turning into drunks. And what do we find with children of alcoholic parents? It's often very difficult for them to be pleasant people, especially when you're bringing up booze. They may be okay with everything else, but you start opening your trap about, oh, the new Beaujolais is wonderful. Don't do that. You you'll find a perfectly nice person suddenly turned as, you know what booze did to my family? So the lightening up has to be all across the board. It really does. When you meet older trads, they've been through hell. And I know, because I was through it. I saw it. I lived through it. When you meet older quote-unquote normal Catholics, the way they'll explode at any attempt to bring back any remnant of tradition, which is something we have to do if we're to believe Benedict XVI, is nothing short of astonishing. My nephew, I have quite a number of them, as longtime watchers will know, but the one who's a church musician and organist and all that, he was playing for one parish, and he began bringing back some traditional music. And there was a revolt of the Blueheads. Oh, well, the bad words were said to him. You know, little old ladies using F-bombs.
What songs specifically?
Oh Lord, I am not worthy.
It wasn't even Gregorian chant?
No. No.
Wow, dude, that's really bad.
I thought so. And of course, my nephew, being himself and not me, was very courteous.
Yeah.
Had it been me, I would have said, you know, you're showing your age, Grandma. But see, these things really happen to me. I find in life, it's funny, those sorts of people know who they can prey on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
You know, come here and say that, old lady. Come here, get that mouth moving.
No, you know,
Doesn't
people
happen.
sense weakness and they jump on it. I think I have an agreeable nature to it, and that, you know, I kind of am too nice, and then people jump all over you. You got to watch out for that.
Well, you do, especially if they're elderly.
Especially if they're elderly, yeah.
Because see, you know what's funny, ladies and gentlemen? Elderly does not mean to me what it means to you.
Okay.
I'll tell you what I mean. And this also reflects becoming elderly, just so you know. You live in the world of your childhood and youth, mentally. That's what actually is the prism through which you see everything.
That's your normal, yeah.
Yeah, that's your normal.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to say that there's a particular year, even, which is your normal.
Yeah.
For me, it's 1964.
1994 for me.
There you go. 30 years difference. Now, the old people of my time, or the people I thought it was the old people, their year was 1904.
Okay. Okay.
The current old people, it's 1968. See, where I was dealing with the people who listened to Tin Pan Alley, those are the old people of my childhood. The old people of today are my older brothers who are still rocking out. All the leaves are gone, and the skies are gray, and the skies are gray, like my hair. What? Anyway, the point is that these are not your grandmother's old people.
Right.
And that's why when I see an old woman say, or an old man, but particularly old women, it's really ugly, using foul language, it's hard for me because she looks like the old people of my childhood, but they didn't have mouths like that.
Right.
And yet at the same time, they still think that being elderly means they should have some sort of deference given them. You know, stupidity at any age doesn't really deserve deference. And hostile stupidity really doesn't deserve. I mean, look, if somebody is pleasant and stupid, well, you know, how many feet do I have? You have 2. Oh, thank you. Okay, well, he's stupid. But,
Yeah. This is, yeah.
But on the other hand, if I say, you're such a dum-dum, you think I got 2 feet? Oh, what do you call these, moron?
Yeah. That's,
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, Cale, to have taken up your time with that display of insanity, but it was actually there was a point to it, and the point is, your encounters with obnoxious trads, and trust me, I've encountered them too. But they're not the ones who put us in the situation we're in. They're not the ones who run the show. They're not the better part of the episcopate. So, and when you look at obnoxious and annoying trads, you've got to look at them as you would the adult children of alcoholics.
Yeah.
And that's, there you go.
Okay.
You got any more?
No, that's it. Time
That's
for the
it.
book. Time for the book.
What about, that was going to be like the big earth-shaking question that was going to change my life. I was looking forward to this Friday the 13th, for heaven's sake.
No. Sorry. No, I'm sorry, Charles.
All right. Okay. Monday is Our Lady of Mount Carmel, though.
Right.
I neglected to mention that.
Yeah.
If you know any Carmelite churches, hi thee.
There you go.
All right. We're going to push a book.
Yes, our book today is Star-Spangled Heresy, Americanism.
Oh, wow.
This is Solon Church's best-selling book.
Yeah, with good reason.
For good reason. I first came across this book when I read Puritan's Empire.
Puritan's Empire?
Puritan's Empire.
Do you mean Puritan's Empire?
Yeah, Puritan's Empire. And in it, the author quoted Star-Spangled Heresy. And it was such a hardcore quote, I was like, wow, I have to find this book.
Wow.
And I found this book, and somehow, some way, it was out of print, not being published. So I called up Solange Hertz, say, hey, Solange, like to publish your book? She said, okay, let's give it a try. And the rest is history.
I used to tease her, you know.
About what?
Life. The name.
That's me. That's disrespecting your... She's a very agreeable woman.
She was fun. She enjoyed my teasing.
Okay.
You know one of the teases?
What?
The song about her. I told her, I remember Woody Guthrie writing a song about you.
Uh-huh.
And she looked at me, she goes, what? I said, yes, it was when I grew up, one of my favorites. She says, well, what was it? I said, Solange, it's been good to know ya. Solange, it's been good to know ya. I said, when did you meet him? And, she gave me the weirdest look, and then she started laughing at me.
Oh, man.
We were in a bar one time. True story. At a Catholic conference, yes, it was in a hotel. And I ordered a couple of Bloody Marys for us. And she looks at me and says, Charles Coulombe. And I said, sorry. 2 Bloody Betsy's, please.
Yeah.
Then she said, much better.
Get rid of that legacy.
Yeah.
So you've read this book, I believe.
I read that book.
What do you
read
think?
it when it came out.
Oh, you're special.
I am special. I read it before it was printed.
So what do you think of the book?
I endorse it.
You endorse it? Is that as far as you'll go?
But I'm not going to wear it.
You're not going to wear it?
No, I will. Beyond endorsing it and saying, yeah, I agree with what it says. I back it up. It's absolutely true.
What does it say? What good things?
Good stuff.
It says good stuff?
No, what it talks about is the heresy of Americanism, and it really dissects it. And I have to admit, I think she's a little hard on the Irish.
Yeah, she goes to town. Well, the history of our Archbishop, what is it? So starting with Carol, then Archbishop Ireland, and then, a bunch of them.
Yeah, we had a lot of really bad Americanist Irish prelates. There's no doubt about that. But she doesn't mention any of their equally Irish opponents, like Archbishop Corrigan of New York or McQuaid of Rochester.
Interesting.
Well, I mean...
Is that French bias that, we encounter so often?
Well, I wouldn't say bias.
No?
When other people have it, it's bias. When we have it, it's understanding.
Oh, okay.
You see that? There's a difference there.
I get it. Okay.
No, there is a certain amount of antipathy because the Irish really always had their noses in the air in this country about being the real Catholics.
Right.
And the rest of us were funny foreigners.
Yeah.
And that, of course, was very much affected her. It affected my dad. I've told you the story. I've told the story on the air, but I'll tell it again. I don't care. My dad and his parents lived in a town in Massachusetts called New Bedford, Mass. An old whaling town, and they lived when my grandfather managed to buy an old whaling mansion on Water Street in New Bedford, and there they lived. And they would go every Sunday to the French parish down the North End, as we would say, down the North End. Sacré-Cœur was called, Sacred Heart.
Okay.
And when my grandfather was alive, they would drive down there in the car. But when Pepe died, it was the Depression, it was 1933, and they had to give up the car. My grandmother had to take in boarders to hold on to the house. Because my grandfather, he made money and he spent it as quickly as he made it.
Mm.
So, as giving up the car, they had to take the streetcar down to North End every Sunday to go to Mass. Well, one Sunday, my grandmother and my father and my aunt, Ferret, missed the streetcar. So they had to go to the Irish parish, where they had never been before.
Okay.
So they sat in the front row, as they would have done at Sacré-Cœur. And in the midst of the sermon, the priest looks down at them and he says, "Why don't your people go back where you belong?"
Wow.
Well, my grandmother spoke English quite as well as she spoke French. And on the way out the door, the priest was there. And Mamie looked at him and said, "I am so terribly sorry, Father. I hadn't realized this was an Episcopal church."
Oh.
And my dad said the priest was so angry, he turned bright red and was so angry he couldn't talk. It was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that kind of resentment that was in there. And of course, the identification, for instance, of the Kennedys with Catholicism is something that kind of burns. So, I will admit that there's a lot of that in my makeup. I have a lot of Irish blood, ironically. My self-same dad's great-great-great-grandmother was named Mattie Hayman. She was born on the outskirts of Dublin and wrecked on the coast of the Gaspé, married a Coulombe, wise woman. My mother has Irish blood, the Collinses of County Kerry, and the Matthewses of County Tipperary.
You're ingratiated in the French culture, though. You self-identify.
I do self-identify
as French-Canadian. Yeah,
I do. But to be fair, there are a lot of Irish who have been Francified up in Quebec. And not just Irish, but Scots and English. Back in the days when we still had a birth rate, before we became the scumbags we've become, since the Quiet Revolution, due to worthless people like René Lévesque and Pierre Elliott Trudeau, I'm sorry, I managed to get a lot of insults out there all at once. Mm. Anyway, no reflection on Pierre's worthless son, Justin Bieber Trudeau. Mm. But at any rate, back in them days when we could still breed, newcomers would get absorbed. So you would, to this day, you'll find French Canadians with names like MacDonald and Jasson and Rion who don't speak a word of English. But if you look at those names to the Anglo, such as yourself, they would look like McDonald, Johnson, and Ryan.
Yeah. And
if you called them that, they would look at you and not who, what? Who are you asking after? Yeah. And you'd be, you're Mr. Ryan, Monsieur Rion. So, but yeah, I'll admit, but even I think she's a bit rough on the Irish.
That's saying a lot, then.
It is saying a lot. And I have to say too that the Irish. I'm still really recovering from the Irish referendum.
Yeah.
And the creature they have as their prime minister now. The only thing more worthless than him is his predecessor. So, I mean, 66% of the Irish voted for infanticide.
Oh, wow.
I mean, what do you do with that? The English needed an act of parliament in 1967. And if you tried a referendum on the Brits back then, before their brains had been tenderized, it wouldn't have got anywhere.
Yeah.
Same with the Americans. It had to be an act of the Supreme Court. Because there's no way, if there had been, not that we never have them, but if you tried a nationwide referendum in the United States in '73,
Yeah.
you'd have had your rear end handed to you. But it wasn't the Irish courts or the Irish Parliament.
Yeah, it was the people.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I've had people ask me, and it's a fair question, why is so rough on the Irish about this when all the other Western countries have abortion? Well, it's because of how it was done.
Yeah.
In the other countries, our masters, our owners in our democracies, told us through our courts or our Congress or our Parliament or whatever morons run the show.
Yeah.
They said, "You boys are going to play, and this is how you're going to do it now. You're going to put your underwear on your heads from now on and murder infants." And we all said, "Yeah, boss." But that's different from voting it in.
Yeah, they own it even more, in a sense.
Yeah. Well, then they're saying, "Look, we'll do whatever you tell us."
Yeah.
And of course, to be fair, if the Irish had voted the wrong way, next year their masters would have given them another referendum.
Yeah, you've said this point before. Yeah, that's what you...
Well, that's how they got divorced in there. They had like 3 or 4 referenda,
Yeah.
one after the other, almost every year, until they got the right answer.
And then it's the law of the land.
Oh, sacred! Oh, yes!
It's settled law.
It's settled law. Inviolable! Why is it my hands just want to go
I don't know.
constantly? I don't know.
It's weird.
It's very strange.
Okay, back to the book.
Yes.
So, 2 of the big themes that she touches on is sort of the...
Evil of the Irish.
Yeah, the evil of the Irish, and then the roots of anti-Catholicism
Yep.
in America, the Know Nothing Party, which is
What
sort
a
of...
wonderful name.
Yeah, boy, that's an accurate name.
Yeah. Today both parties could be accurately named that.
That's true. So that's touched upon, like just exactly how anti-Catholic America is.
Yeah.
And then she touches on the roots of ecumenism, which is, as I read in Apostate in America, it's got Catholic roots.
Yeah.
The Protestants didn't do this. We did this.
We did. Although, to be fair, and you know I like to be fair, they picked it up and went fun places with it. Well, with good reason, because the God of the Calvinists was a terribly unpleasant God.
Oh, right.
And
Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God? Or is it, yeah, that famous...
yeah, Jonathan Edwards.
Yeah.
You look at the Catholic notion, which was born of the fact that we were a minority. And if there's religious tolerance, maybe you won't smack us around. But then you've got people raised to believe in the God of Calvin, who nevertheless have intellects and acquire an education.
Yeah.
You do that, you end up with Unitarianism, and you end up with Freemasonry. And that's what happened.
Yeah, onto Freemasonry. That's another one of Solange Hertz's big topics that she talks about that not a lot of people talk about, Freemasonry. You, one of your big things that you always say that's important is there never is really separation between church and state.
No.
And we claim that in America, but Solange Hertz would say no, that the religion of the state is Freemasonry.
It is. It's not just the religion of the state, however, in the sense that all of our major governmental buildings in Washington, like the White House, the Capitol building, and a lot of our monuments, like the Washington Monument and so forth, were all consecrated with Masonic rites. All of it, that's all true. But more than that, we are all Freemasons in the United States in the sense, as I said earlier, about Catholics, about Mexico and Ireland and all those countries being Catholic. Not Ireland, actually, quite so much as Italy, Spain, Mexico.
Right.
Even their communists are Catholic, and they hate the church the way a Catholic hates heresy. But in this country, we're all Freemasons. And by that, I don't mean to say, I'm not talking about whatever strange, weird beliefs the higher ranks of Freemasonry may hold. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about revealed, non-secret Freemasonry, which is conduct over creed.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you're a nice person.
Yeah, that's America.
And we all believe that. Even if we think we're dyed-in-the-wool Catholics, the fact is we're not really. We don't think our faith is more important than anything else. We think being nice is more important than anything else. Now, mind you, we never define what those words mean, so we just sort of run around afraid we might offend someone, which is why we Catholics are always the first to shut up. You know, if there's a dispute, the one who wins the conversation is the first to say, well, you just say that because you're Catholic. Then we've got no more to answer.
Yeah.
The idea of shooting back, no, I say it because it's objectively true and you're wrong.
Yeah.
That would never...
Oh, that wouldn't be turning the other cheek.
You know, an almost obscene response suddenly popped into my head and I'm not going to use it.
What? Why?
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm too nice.
Okay, I can guess.
Yeah, I'll bet you can.
I can guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll bet you can. So I'm not going to go there.
It has to do with kicking or whatever.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
paddling.
Exactly.
Okay.
But suffice to say, although of course I remember George Bernard Shaw's play. Oh gosh, Somewhere on the Lion. Pericles and the Lion. No, it wasn't Pericles. Some other name. Anyway, I don't remember. Point is, it's the story is set in the persecution of the early Christians, and the hero finds the lion with a thorn in his paw, and he pulls it out. And years later, he's in the arena,
Mm-hmm.
and the lion that's released is the lion whom he pulled the. So he doesn't go after him as a result. He recognizes his. All right. Well, one of the other characters, lesser characters, is this Christian who's huge and dumb. He's a big bruiser.
Okay.
All right. And this little annoying Roman goes up with a friend, and he slaps him across the face, and the Christian's about to pop him.
Yeah.
And the annoying little fellow goes, "I thought you Christians are supposed to turn the other cheek." And the guy goes like this. And the little annoying Roman goes, "Ha ha ha ha," bam, slaps him. And then the big bruiser goes, "Pop!" And then the guy goes flying. And so his friend, the little guy's friend who'd been standing watching it says, "I thought you Christians turned the other cheek." And the guy looks and says, "I ran out of cheeks."
That's good.
So let that be a lesson to you, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you run out of cheeks. But honestly, no, I mean that we're.
It's interesting. You skipped over it so quickly. I was like, yeah, we know this. Where you talked about American ceremony and symbolism is Masonic.
Well,
You're like, yeah, everybody know. Does everybody know that?
Well, probably not. I mean, you've got a.
She talks about that in this book, among other things. I mean, to me, it's shocking.
It's not really. I mean, you gotta bear in mind that Catholicism influenced culturally only influenced a small minority of Americans. Well, something's got to. And the Masonic Lodge took up the place in American life, the ritual place that the Catholic Church held in most of Europe.
Oh.
Now, that isn't to say the Episcopalians and all that didn't give a certain tone to things, because they did. But, for instance, when, Joseph Smith invented Mormonism, he based Mormonism's rituals on Masonry. Now, why did he do that? Well, because it was the only rituals he knew. That's all he had. If I were going to make up a religion, its rituals would be very Catholic. Why? Because that's all I know. Really. I mean, I've known a little bit about some other religions, but in terms of really in-depth knowledge, all I know is Catholicism. So if I were to create a religion, it would resemble Catholicism a lot. Well, so it was with Joseph Smith. And then he forbade Mormons to join the Masonic order, so they wouldn't notice.
Wow. Sneaky.
No.
Pretty sneaky.
It worked.
It worked.
But whatever, every now and then, a Jack Mormon will become a Freemason, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I know where this comes from. How did you steal this from the Mormon Church? Well, it's not how it worked, actually. It's the other way around. And of course, Masonry is a very diverse group, too. There are all sorts of different rites and orders within it. There are many, many different Masonic organizations. There's actually, oddly enough, there is one Masonic rite, York Rite, Scottish Rite, and so forth. There's one Masonic rite that Catholics really shouldn't join, but if you're already a member and you convert to Catholicism, you do not have to leave it.
What?
Yes, this is true. This is a little bit of a factoid, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
The two major objections to Masonry on the part of the Church are its naturalism, kind of like over creed,
Right.
and the secret oaths, which are really bloodthirsty and blood-curdling. All right. Well, then, if you ever belong to Catholic organizations like the Knights of Columbus or the Knights of Peter Claver, I belong to both, you'll find that our promises aren't nearly so blood-curdling, and there's always the proviso that we have to keep everything secret unless it conflicts with our religious or civic duties. There's always the escape clause.
Okay.
So, like, I'm not going to tell you what Knights of Columbus rituals are like, but if there were a murder investigation, you know, and for whatever reason I had to spill the beans,
Yeah.
there wouldn't be a second question about it, because the Knights of Columbus promise is very clear about unless it conflicts with your civic or religious duties.
Okay.
And by that reason, for instance, if I hear about treason or heresy during a council meeting, I have no reason to keep it to myself. No
Okay.
reason to keep it secret. So, the one rite of Freemasonry
Has the escape clause.
it has an escape clause, but here it is. Are you ready?
Yes.
The Swedish Rite. And that is the predominant form of Freemasonry, don't be surprised, in Sweden, and elsewhere in Scandinavia. We don't have, to my knowledge, we don't have the Swedish Rite over here at all. But the reason why it's so different from most Masonry is because it's explicitly Christian, and the oaths were considerably toned down. Reason for that is that back in the 1770s, King Gustav III of Sweden didn't like the way Freemasonry was going. So he literally took over the Masonic lodges, and he said, okay, we're going to change things. So you have to swear that you believe that Christian religion is the one true faith, and the oaths do not allow you to cover up treason or heresy.
Wow.
So
That's okay.
that's a weird story.
It's weird. Okay.
Well, he didn't. Now, you know, I found myself telling the story, and then I mentioned that he was assassinated.
Okay.
And people, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but the minute I say the one and then the other.
Yeah, they link it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So, I mean, does the rest of the Freemason rites, do they see this as a sort of schism? I mean, do they still embrace the Swedish rite?
Well, some of them do, some of them don't. The Americans embrace the Swedish Rite as Brother Masons. And of course, there are elements in American Masonry, the so-called Knights Templar and so forth, that use Christian imagery and claim to be Christian. Various Masonic bodies have commemorations of the Last Supper on Maundy Thursday.
Okay.
And they celebrate the feasts of St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist. That doesn't make them Christian, but
Okay, yeah, you're not endorsing
No.
them. Yeah, okay.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, and this, Kale, this is the kind of thing that drives me crazy. And it's not just trans like this. The idea that if you know something about something, you're obviously in favor of it.
It's interesting, yeah.
That's well, people are like that.
Yeah.
You know, if you know about communism, you must be pro-Soviet.
Well, see, that's why I felt the need to clarify that, because people are
No,
like that.
you're absolutely right. I know a bit about Freemasonry. I'm far from an expert. I probably know more than the average Catholic, but I'm far from an expert on Freemasonry, believe me. But the very fact that I know the little that I do would imply for some people, well, if he knows it, he must be part of it. No. But I love and want to know ever more about my country. And you can't know about America really unless you know about Freemasonry. It's just one of the things. We have God knows how many lodges on the eastern coast of the United States that go back before the Revolution.
Wow.
You know, Masonry is a big part of American life. Do I like that? Not really. But if I really want to know what America is as it is, then I have to know that. The committees of correspondence during that we've read about during the Revolution were almost inevitably connected to the local Masonic Lodge. That's just the way it was, ladies and gentlemen. Am I happy about that? No. But the truth of the matter is that the American ethos is the Masonic ethos. And I don't blame the Freemasons or the Americans for that. I blame us.
Yeah.
Just as I don't blame the Jews. I don't blame anybody for whatever they've acquired or gotten. I blame us. Because we haven't done our job. You know how I know? Because if we had, we wouldn't be having this bloody conversation. That's how I know. It's like, you know, if a kid has flunked a grade, okay? And you're coming in and you're having a conversation with the kid about his failed grade. Well, but why is there a problem? Well, there's a problem because you failed. Obviously, you didn't get the subject down. Is that my fault that I'm upset about your F? Is it the teacher's fault that you didn't complete the assignments and you didn't pass the tests?
It was a hard test.
Yeah, and I had other stuff to do than that stupid homework.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's wrong with you people? You're as bad as my teacher. Let me live my life. You know, unfortunately, the kid's like 11, so you can't say what you'd like to, which is great. Do it at your own expense. See it. But seriously, ladies and gentlemen, we all want to assign scapegoats. You know, America is the screwed up place it is because of the Freemasons, or the Jews, or the blacks, or the Illuminati, or the Mexicans, or Kukla, Fran, and Ali, the Addams family, the Munsters. They're all in it together. Maybe it's Bigfoot and the aliens, the lizard people. All those guys in it together. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as conspiracy and so forth. There certainly is. But no conspiracy ever existed that was no evil conspiracy, because I guess a bunch of people getting together trying to do a good thing is also a conspiracy. But no evil conspiracy ever triumphed in a healthy society. There's always something really wrong there. The French Revolution. You can talk about the Freemasons, the Grand Orient, and all them. And that I neglected to mention that there's a whole section of Freemasonry that's professedly atheist.
Whoa.
The Grand Orient, based in Paris. And they are American Freemasons who, you know, for whom you've got to be deist or theist or something.
Yeah.
To say nothing of the Swedish Lodge. There's a big schism between those two.
Interesting.
But the thing is that, and interesting enough also, the Grand Orient is most popular in Catholic countries.
Of course.
Because they follow the whole thing out to its logical conclusion. Whereas
interesting.
Whereas in Protestant countries...
They don't. Interesting.
No, when you follow something out to its logical conclusion, it can be uncomfortable.
Wow.
Which doesn't bother cultural Catholics. But it bothers cultural Protestants a lot. You follow anything out to its logical conclusion, you got problems. So how do you avoid that? Well, you don't follow it out to its logical conclusion.
Wow.
You just keep burbling along.
Okay.
But at any rate, I will just say that stop, ladies and gentlemen, looking for scapegoats on the outside. Start trying to be the kind of Catholic who will spread the faith to others, whom others will want to emulate. That is what you and I have to do. You know, if you say, well, because of Jewish finance we're where we are, so I'm never going to listen to a word of Yiddish again. And there's witchcraft and evil, and I'm never going to read fantasy books because of it. And there's Freemasonry is just rotten throughout everything in D.C. So I'll never visit the District of Columbia. And those trads are hateful and annoying, so I'll never see them again. And I'm going to stay away from the traditional Mass. And the Novus Ordo is the work of the devil because it altered the original Mass, so I'm not going to go to it. And I'm going to sit in my room and be perfect. You do that. On the proviso that when you seal yourself in your room, you disconnect your computer. Because you know what he's going to do in his room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, understand, ladies and gentlemen, in the immortal words of Pogo Possum, there's a reference you won't get. So,
Okay.
I know what I'm doing. In the immortal words of Pogo Possum, we have seen the enemy, and he is us. Don't try to push this off. We Catholics, we American Catholics, we Catholic Americans, as I should say, have failed our country miserably. We have no one to blame but ourselves. And the only way we can make up for it is trying, as individuals, to live the faith as well as we can, to bring others to the faith as well as we can, until, in God's good time, enough of us have done so, and He rewards us with a hierarchy that will back up our attempts and give us the kind of leadership we need in the long run. But don't let's play the blame game and try to find scapegoats for what is really our fault.
Okay, that'll do it for this episode. If you'd like to send Charles a question, you can contact us through the Tumblr House website. And we'll see you next time. And remember, if it's Monday, it's off the menu.
I don't want to end on a downer.
You don't want to end on that?
No.
Okay, say something happy and fun.
Every day and every way we're getting better and better. No. I will say something happy and fun. Having said that, though, ladies and gentlemen, the Catholic life is also an awful lot more fun than anything else. That whole sense of wonder I think we spoke about earlier, that's what we should be sharing with these folk. That's our crime, is not sharing it. But I guess if we don't have it ourselves, we can't share what we don't have.
It's true.
So build that sense of wonder. And if you don't like fantasy novels, fine. Build it some other way. You know, staring at the stars. Whatever personally gives you wonder. Do that. And infuse your faith with that sense of wonder. I guarantee you'll want to evangelize, and sooner or later you'll be the sort of Catholic that other people will want to emulate. And again, for whatever the kid was, the kid's name, the 17-year-old, thank you. On behalf of your parents, on behalf of Catholic America, thank you for being a responsible kid. You'll grow up into a good and responsible gentleman, I'm sure. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.